everyone, I'm Carla Hall and I'm here to welcome you to the 6th week of Toms of Maine Wicked Fresh chat series. I'm excited to share some of my cook from the heart tips and inspire you to create healthy and delicious holiday meals. To get started, just type in any question in the Facebook or Ustream chat boxes. All right, for our first question, why did you decide to become a chef? I think that's from my mom. Anyway, so I decided, I think the whole food world sort of chose me. I was an accountant before, and I was hoping that anything else chose me. And I love creating. I started buying cookbooks, and cookbooks, recipes were like puzzles to me. So I would go to a restaurant, and I would taste the food, and then I would say, you know, what's in it? And I would make little notes. And I started a lunch delivery service as a fluke, and then I went to culinary school, and then the rest is history, as they say, but I love it. All right, so for the next question, how did your family and colleagues react when you made it on the Top Chef show? Twice. I think they were really excited. The first time when I made it on season 5, everyone was really excited. Now, I, on the other hand, was like a deer in headlights. I think it was really fun going through the process of auditioning and all of that. But when they called me to say, Carla, guess what? You're on Top Chef. And I'm like, no, really? Really? Like, you kind of go into that deer in headlights thing, like, what am I going to do? And everyone was really excited because I think they see the possibilities and they think you can do it. And I honestly thought that I could get on there and show my stuff because, for the most part, being a caterer, you need to think on your feet. And I literally run through the streets. And I'm just running here and running there, and my neighbors are seeing me run in and out and carrying things. I'm like, this Top Chef has to be easy compared to this. Okay, it was another story. But yeah, they're excited. How does it feel to be part of an Emmy-winning show? Well, what that means is there are 30 million plus people watching all of us, and we're actually affecting, I think, the food scene, which is really exciting to me. Even when kids come up to you and they've seen the show, it's really exciting. So we use this platform to talk about healthy foods and seasonal foods and get people really inspired. So it's an amazing feeling. All right, so the next question. What's your catchphrase, Ticky Boo, mean? And how did you come to start saying it? All right, folks. Ticky Boo is something that I say like chop chop. Okay, let's cook that. Ticky Boo, Ticky Boo. And it started when I was cooking something fast like calamari. You know, calamari either cooks 45 seconds or 45 minutes. And when it's cooking 45 seconds, I'm like tick tick. Or if I'm cooking scallops, I'm like tick, flip it, tick. You get it? So Ticky Boo, chop chop, come on, let's go. All right, do you have any delicious holiday recipe suggestions? Of course I do. All right, so let's talk about pies, because you know I love pies. And you know you can't have a great pie without having a great crust. And if you go to the Toms of Maine site and you click on notes, you'll see a wonderful recipe there for apple frangipan tart. And so of course apples are in season. And you can have a variety of apples. I love apples, and I would choose tart apples and sweet apples, but something that is really firm that's not going to disintegrate once you cook it. And frangipan has almonds in it, and basically, if you all are wondering what frangipan is, it's almost like a It's almonds and sugar and butter, the base of a tart. When you go to get a Bordeaux tart at a French patisserie, it's usually there are pears, and it puffs up, so it's beautiful. So we have the almonds, and then in this tart we mix in ginger and cranberries. And even if you don't like ginger, folks, you will love this because it has a bright, fresh taste. And the cranberries are going to give it a little tartness, and then you're going to add lemon. Beautiful. I suggest that you make this pie not only because of all the fall flavors, but also you can make it in a food processor. And if you have a food processor, you can make the crust in the food processor, the frangipan in the food processor, and and everything else, not the apples. So, okay, for our next question, did Joe Jonas say anything funny or ask you for cooking advice when the cameras were off? No. Okay, next question. No, I'm just kidding. Let's see. No, but he's obviously really interested in food. So, and that great smile. Maybe I don't remember the questions because I was just looking at his smile. I was just like this. You know, like the little girls. Ah, Joe! If you could create any dish for Joe Jonas, what would it be? Oh, good question. Good question. I think I would create something that, probably something that reminds me of his music. He seems to be really laid back and friendly, so something that's very approachable. A dish that that he would probably think to have something homey when he travels. So, and a lot of times when you're traveling, you miss home. So I would do a dish that would bring him right back home. Even though he's not at home, home is where the heart is, and home is also the food memories that you carry around in your heart. So I would definitely do something homey. Okay, is there a mantra / quote that represents the way you try to live your life? Oh yes, how much time do we have? Stay in the moment. And I always say to my husband, there are no mistakes in the universe. So when something happens to me, I will look for the lesson in it. And if I'm looking for the lesson, then it stays fresh. And I'm like, I will learn something wonderful in this moment. So even though it seems really hard or adverse, I'm always looking for the spin on it so I can learn something. What type of yoga do you practice, and how has your practice affected your cooking? I've done Bikram. And, you know, that's a lot of sweating, and which is really awesome, and just cleaning out your body. And I think it just helps, yoga helps me stay present. And it's just about breathing. And a lot of times when I get scared or if I'm stressed, I just go to that place. And I could be in a bank line. I could be at the grocery store. I could be talking to you all right now. And then I just go to this really comfortable place, and I hold a lot of my stress here in my stomach, and so I just start breathing, and that's what yoga helps me do, just to start breathing and just to stay present. Oh, why did you decide to open a catering business and not a restaurant? Oh, let me tell you. Okay, so the catering, again, talking about something choosing me. I talked about how I started a lunch delivery service. So let me tell you a little bit about how that started. I did a I did a baby shower for my sister. She was already married, now she's having a baby. And a friend couldn't come. So I took leftovers to her for lunch the next day. And she said, oh, I wish you could do this all the time. And so when I was planning to do that, I went to her office, and my brother-in-law actually had taken the food, as you would. And so I had to make something really quickly. So I put everything in a picnic basket. And so here I go, trotting off for her, with her lunches. And I get there, and she says, oh, this is my friend Carla, and she has a business. I didn't tell her I had a business. But he said, what's the name of your business? And I said, the lunch basket. Well, when will you be back? Tomorrow. And hence my little lunch delivery service was born. And within a week I had 7 clients. Within 14 days, 2 weeks, I had 14 clients, so it had doubled. And I did that for 5 years before I went to culinary school. And after culinary school, I did restaurants, and then I sort of fell back into being the catering director at a company, and then I did catering. And I think I wanted to be in control of my business and work for myself. So that's kind of how I fell into it. Oh, if you could cater any celebrity's holiday party, whose would it be and why? Ooh, you know, I have to say, and honestly, it would be different every day of the week that you ask me. It depends on my mood. If I am working and I'm all excited and I've just left yoga, it would be Oprah Winfrey or Eckhart Tolle, because I would just be in that space and I'd want to talk to them and then have all of Oprah's favorite things around me and have tables of the favorite things. If it was after I watched a really great, what I call a kick-ass movie, it might be Robert De Niro or some super sleuth person. So it changes. Great question, though. Okay, if you could recommend only 5 grocery items to always purchase organic, what would they be and why? Okay, so this is like your desert island organic list, right? I would say eggs, and milk, and your meat. So basically the things that are coming from an animal, I would want those to be organic. And the vegetables, but I think that the conventional vegetables are okay, but I would really err on the side of getting my poultry and meat and dairy from organic sources. What was your favorite childhood dish and why did you love it? Oh my God. I loved oranges, I have to say. Let me start there. And one day I ate a whole bag of oranges and I was a little itchy afterwards, but it was fun while I was going through them. I loved macaroni and cheese, like all kids, and my grandmother made the best macaroni and cheese. But there is a special place in my heart. We always had breakfast. My mother made us breakfast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so I have this warm place in my heart for pancakes, and I go through this entire ritual when I get my pancakes. If ever you all saw me, so that you don't think that I'm OCD, if ever you saw me with my pancakes, I cut them into little pie wedges, and then I pour the syrup on, and then I go in with the wedges and eat the little pie wedge of the stack. So pancakes. I know it's boring, but yeah, love those. Okay, you take a holistic approach to food. What does that mean? What that means to me is being present when I'm cooking and honoring the food. I think when I look at food, I let the food tell me what it wants to be, or at least I try to be present. And let me give you an example. So here we have some Brussels sprouts, and we've got some butternut squash, oranges, and some peppers. So when I'm cooking the Brussels sprouts, and actually a lot of people don't like Brussels sprouts, I will try to think, okay, how else do I want to present these? Of course you have the little cabbages, and people usually quarter them or whatever, but now it's a really big thing to eat the leaves, and it's so beautiful to actually show the little petals of the Brussels sprout leaves, and that's the delicate part of the vegetable. So it's just honoring, what that vegetable tastes like and looks like, and actually, just getting to the essence of that vegetable. And for me, Brussels sprouts means a series of leaves and unfolding. Now, with the butternut squash, that's a firm vegetable. It's sweet, and I want to pair it with spicy things. I want to pair it with acid. And again, just thinking about honoring that vegetable and how it will blossom and making it memorable in whatever dish. What was the worst cooking disaster you've had? Whew. Oh my gosh. Okay, here's one. This was a long time ago. Let me preface by saying that. I had an event when I first started catering, and I thought I could just do any and everything. So understand that I hadn't been to culinary school yet, but my clients were trusting me to do this event. And I'd been doing sandwiches. And on Fridays, I do special meals. So I would do something hot, like calzones or little dinners. It's like the catfish dinner when you would go to, like a Saturday dinner at church. So they had chicken, and they had the family meal. So I went on about all of these dishes. We had a family meal. And so I'm like, oh, this is great. We're rushing, and I'd never cooked that much chicken in my life. So the organizer comes into the kitchen and says, Carla, the chicken isn't done. How many people? 150. What? Okay, so that was a disaster. Yes, that was a disaster. You never want to do that, and I haven't done that, fortunately, again. The other disaster that I had, which was more recently, in the last year, I was handing a cake to a waiter, and in slow motion, that cake slid off of that pedestal, and we were all like this. And that cake just went right to the floor. So that was a little bit of a disaster, but we had a little bit of recovery. It's all about the recovery. So they're not really disasters. You all have to know this. It's all about the recovery. MacGyver. Mm-hmm. What was the audition process for Top Chef like? You know, the 25-page application is the first startling thing. You're like, okay, what, you know, everything but the kitchen sink and asking all of that. So that was one thing. And then you have to do a video, which was really fun. In my video, and some videos that people have submitted are actually online. In my video, I got up early in the morning. It was still dark, and my hair was all over my head. And I said, "Hi, I'm Carla Hall, and I want you to spend the day with me. I want you to run around with me." And then the next shot was me down at the mall. And I said, "What, you thought I was kidding?" And I had my running shoes on, and I was just running all around the monument and everything. It was so much fun. And then the next shot was me cooking, and the next shot was me setting a table, and then the next shot was me going home finally to play games. Because what? I love games. And then that was it. Fun. What's your favorite vegetarian or vegan dish to make? From vegetarianstar.com. Really good question. Actually, most things that I make, because I love seasonal foods, I start with vegetables and then I work out for with the protein. So recently, I'm all into root vegetables. Now, here we have some parsnips. We don't have any turnips or rutabagas. Rutabagas. Okay, that's me. I have Southern Tourette's because sometimes my accent just comes and goes, and so it's a rutabaga, not a rutabaga. So I've got parsnips, and right now what I do is I roast them. So I have rutabagas and turnips and parsnips and carrots, and I roast those, tossed in garlic and olive oil, and then I take onions and saute that. And then you take a little bit of veggie stock and you put all of those roasted vegetables in the pot with lots of herbs and just a pat of butter. Tick, 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 ticky-boo. Peacock. Yum, yum, yum. Love it. And then what you want to do with that is take maybe a marinated piece of tofu, and don't forget to press it out, because all of that water in that tofu is not going to take any seasoning. So you press it out, and then you may do herbs and salt and just a really nice marinade. Sear that. Smack your mama good. Smack your mama good. The other thing that I love to do is I love to make soups, like the butternut squash soup. And then instead of the cream, you add silken tofu. Okay, we got to do it again. Peacock. So yummy. With lots of umpa and spices, and yummy. Really yummy. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite restaurant? Oh, okay, let me sit down for that one. I'm sitting down for this question because, it changes. What my favorite restaurant when I was on vacation would be different than my restaurant if I'm going out for a quick meal with my husband. Also, last night, 2 nights ago, my husband and I had a little date night. Can't forget to do that, little date night. And I went to this restaurant called 8407. And for this week, that's my favorite restaurant. But last week, it would have been something else. And I like to go to restaurants where it's comfortable and the food is yummy and I can just feel the chef's heart. Yeah. Can you recommend a good holiday gift for the at-home chef? Okay. Does the at-home chef have a microplane? You got to have a microplane. Does the at-home chef have a serrated peeler, like a really good peeler? Because those parsnips that I was pointing to and the carrots, you got to have a good peeler to peel those. And by the way, when you're peeling that parsnip, I just want to give you guys a quick little lesson while we're sitting here talking. You peel it down and you peel it up. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and you just keep turning it. Beautiful thing. Great tip, and you get your prep done really quickly. I would also say I wouldn't buy the at-home chef a knife, because buying good knives depends on the person's hand. It's like buying a pair of shoes for somebody and they have to try them on. But and not too many gadgets, because you can't find them when you're ready to look for, when you're ready to use them. So not a lot of gadgets. If you want to get them a nice pot, awesome. I would take a nice pot. Sure would. If you could invite 5 people to a holiday party, living or deceased, who would you invite and what would you make? Oh, that's so hard. It's not, I mean, it's just hard to limit it. Okay. That's me stalling. Okay, I'm drinking some water now. Okay. I gotta invite Eckhart Tolle. I know I've already talked about him. I've got to have him at my party. I would also have, I like Sean Connery. I do. I like his accent. I liked him in the movies. I would just want to have him there talking to me. And I would invite, Martin Luther King, and not because it's the thing to do, but I would want to have Martin Luther King there because I think he would teach us a lot about restraint but the power in the restraint, and what he would say now in terms of bringing peace together. I would love that. And one person that I really think is really funny is Mark Twain or Samuel Clemens. I love his stuff. And the other person I would invite is, gosh. Okay, I'm going to come back to that because I'm going to tell you what I would make. I would ask each person something about their food memories. And I would pick one dish to go various courses about their food memories, and I would want to make something like that because there's nothing like sitting down and having something like your food memories. And actually, Jacques Pepin has to come to this party because I had the fortunate experience of making some of his food memories on his last meal. So he has to come to my party, and maybe he can help me cook too. Okay, can you share any tips on how to manage a menu for a holiday get-together? Oh my gosh, of course. This is what you're going to think about. You have a get-together. You have to plan. It's almost like a business plan. You have to have a meal plan. So what you want to do is balance the things that you're making ahead. First of all, you're going to have your menu. And you want to balance the things that you're going to make ahead, the things that you're going to serve room temperature or cold, the things that it's a reheat on top of the stove, and then the things that are last minute and a reheat in the oven. Because if you have everything going on in the oven, it's going to be a total disaster. You're going to be overwhelmed. And what I suggest you do is take all of those pots that you might use in order to, like the last minute stuff, and actually put them in the oven or put them on top of the stove. Because if they don't fit, that dish shouldn't be made because it'll just be a mess. And so small things that can come right out of the freezer that you've done ahead, like tartlets or things like that. If you do a small goat cheese tartlet made in the mini tart pan, you don't have to really pre-cook the dough, because if they're frozen, by the time you are making them and by the time the goat cheese melts and cooks, that crust is actually cooking too. So that's one of those tips. Use things like cookie cutters to form, and melon ballers, scoops, all of those kinds of things. And again, use Ziploc bags. Ziploc bags for marinating, Ziploc bags for portioning, for doing things ahead. They lay flat in the refrigerator. That's another thing. Plan out how you're actually going to store all of your prep in the refrigerator. And if you're laying things flat, you can see it and it's not taking up a lot of space. What's your favorite holiday food indulgence? You know, when I had my Thanksgiving dinner in Nashville, Tennessee, and when I am having those family meals, I want to have all of my food memories. I want to have the things that my grandmother actually made. So I want the turnip greens and the candied yams and the cranberry sauce and the macaroni and cheese. And this year, my sister who has high, I was going to say she has high blood pressure. She has high cholesterol, and so does my mother. So they were constantly saying, oh, we have high cholesterol. We can't eat that. We can't eat that. We can't eat that. And I'm like, it's just one day. Can't you just eat this just one day? And they're like, no, we're showing restraint. So for us, it was about altering those dishes. But the one dish that I wouldn't alter that reminds me of my grandmother and my childhood is the macaroni and cheese. And what I said to them was, just have less. Because we're having this exactly as it is, because a low-cal mac and cheese is not mac and cheese. Aside from cooking, what do you like doing in your spare time? I like rollerblading, I like drawing, I like crafts. I love crafts. My husband always says, this is my wife Carla, she loves crafts. I love doing things with my hands. I love going to the movies. My husband and I go to the movies a lot. We watch a lot of movies. And I like reading. I like reading books, but most of the books that I read are spiritual in nature. Yeah, that's about it. Is there a cause you are passionate about? If so, what is it? I'm really passionate about kids. So most of the organizations that I get involved in have to do with kids. So I'm involved with the Youth Garden in Washington, D.C. I'm also involved with a new organization, a foundation called Fuel Up to Play 60. And this is an organization that is put together to fight childhood obesity. And I'm also doing Chef's Move to Schools. So a lot of the things that I'm doing kind of fit hand in hand. And the great thing about Fuel Up to Play 60, and it's with the NFL and lots of other food companies, the Dairy Board, and the whole thing is to get kids the proper food so that they can have activity to actually play 60 minutes. Because as you know, there's less playing going on and less recess time and all of that and more gaming going on when they're sitting down. So I'm very passionate about that because I think you can't have great food and actually sit down. So putting the two together is the ticket. Do you ever go on food crawls? If so, what and where was your favorite one? Oh, yes, I do. You know, the funny thing about chefs is we're always cooking for people, so to go out is just an awesome thing. And I will get into this this phase where I want to have the best pizza. So I'll go to about 5 different pizza places and determine, you know, what's the best. And a lot of times I'll take my nephew or my niece and we were like, okay, what about the sauce? What about the crust? What about the toppings? And we'll have our little score sheet. The other thing that I go around tasting is vanilla ice cream. And I go to all the different restaurants or the ice cream parlors and I want to taste the ice cream. And honestly, as simple as it is, a roasted chicken. I think people are so into the fancy and into the smear and everything that you forget the simple pleasures of a roasted chicken. So I think that was my favorite one because it's a beautiful thing is just a golden, crispy skinned, succulent roasted chicken with herbs and lemon. Can you taste it? Do you have a favorite cookbook and are you planning to write one? Of course I have a favorite cookbook, but again it changes. So it's one thing for desserts and it's another thing for savory. But I like cookbooks that actually tell a story. I want to know why the chef cooks the way that they cook. So a lot of chefs these days are letting us into their world, like what goes on in their heads and how they create. So I love cookbooks like that, and so they're too numerous to count. I am in the process of trying to write a cookbook, but I have to tell you, before, what I would hear when people would say, do you want to write a cookbook? And I would say, what I heard was, do you want homework? And, you know, so now I want homework. I want more homework, and I'm trying to do the cookbook and manage that with everything else that's going on. What's a typical day like for you? Let me tell you about yesterday. Yesterday, I woke up at 3:20 a.m. and I got dressed in the dark because I didn't want to disturb my husband. And I tiptoed, and actually I felt rested because I went to bed at 9 o'clock the previous night. And I went to my kitchen to make my little petite cookies. And I looked down, and I was wearing mismatched shoes. I was wearing one blue one and one tan one. And I said, that's okay because I'm going to make it home before I have my cooking class. But I didn't make it home. It was a really busy day. I had to go to a rental company for my last catering job in January and talk to them. I had to take a friend to the airport. I had to get a bunch of cookie dough done to put these gift bags together and get those mailed out. And then I had to prepare for a cooking class that I was doing, so I had the recipes to do, the setup, and the cooking for that. And I think my day ended at 11:30, and I still had those shoes on, and my hair was just like all over my head. How do you manage your time between family, career, and appearances? Ooh, did my husband write that? I think he did. Okay, Matthew, well, this is what I'm doing. And if you didn't write it, you probably got someone to write it for you. I'm actually making decisions based on quality of life now, which is why I put the catering behind me. It was just too much with planning and all of that headspace, because that's 3 major jobs. So I have taken what I want to do 4 years from now and broken it into manageable pieces, which is why I'm doing the line of sweet and savory petite cookies. And because I'm not doing the catering, I have more time for appearances, and actually being here talking to you is amazing. And my husband and I have time for date night. And then my stepson Noah, we're going away. I cannot believe it. I actually went away for Thanksgiving. And I'm going away the week before Christmas. I mean, that is unheard of in the catering world. For moms and dads who have limited time to cook dinners in the evening, do you have any tips or recipes you could share for quick and tasty meals? That's a really good question, and I'm going to answer it 2 different ways. Here's a great idea. And if you like fish or some kind of meat that, well, actually fish, you do the empapillote in parchment paper or foil. You can get pieces of fish, and you just saute quickly some vegetables and put under the fish, and then a compound butter. That's just butter with herbs and shallots and just some bits and bobs and yummy pieces in that. Fold it up, and then you do this in the morning and just put it in your fridge, 1 for each person who's eating. When you come home, you take that out of the fridge and you pop it in the oven, and in about 20 minutes you're eating. So you have a little bit of setup in the morning, but for the most part, that thing is done, and you're going to pour a little bit of wine in there and just before you finish it. Really easy peasy. One pot wonders are really good. I mean, right now we're in chili season and stew season and soup season, and soups are a great way to get seasonal vegetables in there. So, and they're really fast. Do not feel like you're cheating when you go in the grocery store and you get those cut up vegetables, because if you don't have the time and you're saying, let me get a box or let me eat out instead of buying that because I feel like I'm cheating, that's a good cheat. Get those, throw your soup together, and then it's going to simmer. And then, for 45 minutes or so. Another thing, a dump and roll. I call the crock pot cooking dump and roll. You dump it in and you roll on out. Come on back and you eat. Done. Do you have any secret power foods that you eat or use in your recipes? If so, what are they and what do they do? Whew! This is when we call a nutritionist. It's like, what does this do for me? I love acai berries. I love dried cranberries. You know, the dehydrated fruit. I use a lot of dehydrated berries and cranberries, blueberries, raspberries. And these I incorporate by putting them in the spice grinder or the coffee grinder, and I will add this to a soup. So those vegetables are straight vegetables, or straight fruits. And you can do peas that way, and you just put it into your dish. For instance, for the pie, you can actually take those berries and mix it in a little bit of sugar and sprinkle over so you get that essence of pow. Another thing that I do, I take like a just fruit juices, like just berries, just cherries, and I will use that in my pie. And it seems like it's kind of expensive, but you get, again, the juice is good for you, but you're packing a punch. And this is what I call in my cooking when I'm doing cooking classes, oompa. You want your food to have oompa. You want to just like, yes, if it's blueberry, taste blueberry. Don't taste lemon, don't taste just sugar. You want to have just a nice, rich flavor. So I would say get some of those power juices, some like the pomegranate juice and the acai, and cook it down and add that to some of your salad dressings or fruit pies. Was it possible to prepare for Top Chef All-Stars? No. Anything that I thought it was gonna be, it wasn't. You all, when I tell you it was hard, it was so hard. But I have to tell you, it was like Top Chef camp, and seeing all of that talent run around like we were kids and make it through those challenges. When I look over and I'll see like Richard Blaze or Antonia or Angelo and they're having a hard time, I'm like, I am so glad they're having a hard time too, because this is crazy. And you just don't want to be the only one who's having a hard time. But not hard because of not making it through, but hard just because it was challenging. So what I did to prepare was, again, like the yoga, the breathing, the meditating, so that when all of those fears started bubbling up inside of me and I was really tense in my stomach, I would just say, okay, calm down. No one ever died here. Calm down. This is going to be okay. Just breathe. So they thought I was like the Zen mother. They already called me the Den mother, but they thought I was the Zen mother too. Do you like cooking without your recipes? Yes, I do. Even if I give you recipes, I encourage you to make them your own by twisting them a little bit. Because if you put your own heart into the recipe, then it's a totally different thing. Everybody's recipes are their perspectives. Like, I love a good pucker. I love lemon. If I can put lemon in everything, honestly, I will. But you may not like lemon. So when you get to one of my recipes, you're like, gosh, I don't like her recipes. I don't know why I don't like her recipes, because I use a lot of lemon. But you have to know that about yourself. I don't know that about you. So let's say you decide to use some other acid, like vinegar or some kind of a flavored salt. You know what I mean? You change it, but you make it your own. I encourage people, because a recipe is only a guide. And even when I'm doing a cooking class, something will come to me and I'm like, you know what? I know I wrote this on the recipe, but we're going to go down this road right now because this is how I'm feeling. Okay? Is that okay with y'all? So I encourage you to go off the beaten path. Where do you find, there was that Southern Tourette's thing, y'all hear it? Where do you find inspiration for your cuisine? Oh, that's a really good question. And honestly, it's everywhere. It could be the season. Like, for instance, you know, right now pears are in season, apples, and so if I'm working with pears, I think, okay, what are the different forms of pears that I can use? I can use, of course, the pear, no brainer. I can use dried pears. I can use a pear juice. I can use dehydrated pears, and then and that's, I keep going like that, and I'm like, okay, what goes with pears? You know, cranberries, you know, a pear brandy, things like that. And that's how I get my inspiration. Sometimes it could be the ingredient itself. Sometimes it can be a color. Sometimes it can just be going to a restaurant and I see something on the menu and I'm inspired by it, not to do that same thing, but it reminds me of something else. And sometimes I am reminded by some dish that I had as a child that I want to take and change it to make it something that's more current, or it's more me in this space. So it varies. How was your experience on Top Chef All-Stars different from Top Chef? Well, I think I actually didn't know what I was getting into with Top Chef when I was on Top Chef 5. And honestly, when somebody said, oh, what did you think was going to be the first challenge? When we walked around the corner and I saw Tom and Padma, I'm like, ooh, what are y'all doing here for our welcoming party? There was no welcoming party. That was it. We were like hitting the ground running. It was like challenge time. They were not trying to have the crew there for a little welcoming party. I'm like, oh my God. So everything was just new at that time. So for AllStars, we're kind of seasoned and we know what to expect, and we know the routine and how it goes. But with AllStars, you're looking around the room, you're like, oh my God, I loved you on your season. Oh my God, I loved you. You're here too? Oh my. Oh, and then there's you. No, I'm just kidding. But you know that all of those chefs have a reputation, but you didn't really know the other chefs from your season. I mean, I didn't know them, so you had no idea what they were like as chefs. So you just kind of went in ignorant, which it was blissful at that time. This time, you know the caliber of the chefs, and so it's a little intimidating and hard, and it's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to beat him? One challenge at a time. If you weren't a chef, what would you be? I used to say that I wanted to be a race car driver because I like to drive fast. But I think now I would be an artist, or I would love to just make something with my hands. I would love to do like some amazing, as crazy as it sounds, friendship bracelets. Arian taught me from season 5, she taught me how to knot friendship bracelets. And I just like crafts. I think I would be a jewelry maker. Are there any foods that you dislike? Yes, I don't like a lot of innards. Awful. I know, it's like awful, but I call them awful. But I do like foie gras. I don't like kidneys, and I've never had chitlins. I'm from the South and I never had a chitlin. I think it's because my mother didn't like chitlins. I don't like liver, but I've had to cook these things, and I can cook them, but I don't like them. And that's another thing, by the way. When you're eating something, if you don't like something, you have to be able to determine whether or not you like it. You may say you don't like it, but it's still good. And I think that judging food, like with Tom and Padma and Gail and the guest judges, they may not like something, but they can judge it and determine if it's good or not. So sometimes that's a distinguishing factor. I sometimes ask people when they say they don't like something, do you not like it or is it not good? So it's a totally different thing, right? What was it like being judged by Emeril Lagasse? I really liked Emeril. He's so funny. He's laid back and just funny and cracking jokes. And actually, when we were shooting that segment in New Orleans, there were planes going by. So he was talking and he would make jokes about it because he couldn't hear a darn thing. Or maybe I missed something and I thought it was funny just what I heard. But I think he's just really, really funny. I really like him. Great sense of humor, really down to earth. And the fact that Emeril Lagasse said that he liked my dish. Oh. How has being on Top Chef changed your life? Whew, wow. The first change was I didn't realize how popular Top Chef was. So when I was walking down the street and people were like, Carla, I'm like, huh, wait, who are you? And I didn't know, and everybody's like, hooty who? And I'm like, who? Hooty who? And then instead of H-O-O, it was like W-H-O, like who? So that was a change. And I think also being under a microscope, because now that you've been on this show, the expectations are much higher. So it really pushes you to be on top of your game, which is a good thing as a professional chef, because I think we should always be striving for growth and just new things and innovative and just stretching ourselves. But sometimes I think without that, we become complacent. At least I know I did. So it's been an amazing experience for me, just as a growth spurt personally and professionally. So, and I'm still growing. If you could be on any other television show on TV right now, which would it be? You all probably think I'm going to say some food show, but honestly, I'm going to say 24 or Fringe or I love those shows. I have to say, I love those shows. And I can be kind of like a TV junkie, because when I get home, I just want to like, oh. That's a good question, though. How do you keep your cool in the kitchen? I believe that if you're not in a good mood, the only thing you should make is a reservation. I truly believe that. And I also think that it's an honor to cook for people. So it's my job to be cool. The other thing is if I'm working with people and there's tension in the kitchen, the food just isn't good. So a lot of times, even if I'm tense, I won't even let my staff know it. I mean, like yesterday, I mean, things were just flying. I'm like, it's okay. What happened? Okay, I know that pan fell on the floor. What are we going to do about it? We have more stuff. Breathe. Because if your team shuts down, you can't do a darn thing. So I just really bring it back to reality. That's gone. What are we going to do now? No harm, no foul. What's the hardest event you've had to cater? I did an event that was in the middle of a cow field, and we had to bring in, it was a big tent, and we had a catering tent, and there were stoves and fryers and lots of tables, and it got dark, and there were holes in the ground, so when you would send the waiters with a tray of food, they would fall. I mean, I think that was really hard. And then sometimes, you know, when stuff like that happens, you just slow the game down. It's kind of like basketball when the game is going really fast and one team has a running game and the other team is kind of strategizing, but they're trying to keep up with the running game. He's like, let's just slow it down. And so that was really hard. And just not having water. Any event where you don't have running water is hard, okay? When did you realize your passion for cooking? I have to say that when I was modeling in Paris and I was doing runway, and honestly, I almost hate to say that and put myself with really big name runway models, but there were a group of girls, a group of models, and we used to have these Sunday brunches. And I mean, just eat. And contrary to popular belief, you know, models do eat. I mean, some of them may not keep it, but they do eat. But anyway, sorry. So we would have these awesome brunches, and people would just talk about what their mothers were doing and what their fathers were cooking. I'm like, really, really? And I didn't really have too much to contribute except those little pancakes that I would have. But that's when I started buying cookbooks, and I just started really getting into the food and really tasting it and seeing, you know, what made a dish really special and yummy. And then it honestly took off for that. So it took off after that. I was 30 when I went to culinary school, and I was just excited. In your opinion, what is the most versatile cooking ingredient? I mean, I'd have to say, onions go in everything and change it. They change a dish. Lemon can go in sweet or savory dishes. I think those ingredients that can go in sweet or savory, and lemon also helps brighten and balance. So, you know, I like a good pucker, so I'm going to vote for lemon. Doink. What is your favorite vacation destination? Does local cuisine play a part in your travel decisions? What vacations? I'm just starting to take those, but I would have to say I would want to go to Italy. And I love Italian food, and I love the idea of being in a small restaurant where they're running out to get the food and then coming back and cooking it for me, and where everything is really fresh and just lovingly made. So I have this big fantasy about Italy, and I know that happens in other parts of the world. And I also would like to go to, excuse me, I would like to go to West Africa and kind of travel around and see what's happening there, Ghana specifically. How do you source your ingredients? There are farmers that we work with in DC, and I think for the most part you can go to a farmer's market almost every day in DC right now. And sometimes you have the bigger suppliers who will source a lot of things from farmers, and that's another place that we shop. I also go to the co-ops. I get a lot of my dry ingredients from the co-ops because being a member, it's 10% above cost, and so I'm like, yay. So I can get organic flour and sugar and a lot of my baking ingredients at a really good price. So that also drives where I go. Is there any contestant on Top Chef in particular you would like to collaborate with on a challenge? There are two, and I would have to say Antonia or Tiffany Dairy, and their food is very similar to mine, and so I think that there would be a meeting of the minds. That being said, excuse me, time for a drink. That being said, I think I might pair myself with someone who's not exactly like me. It's kind of like a marriage where you are more complementary. And if I go down that route, it would be Richard Blaze, because I love the direction that he's taking with his food. And in season 4, he was more like the molecular gastronomy guy, and that he's still that guy. But I think now he is marrying that technique with, and honestly, it's just cooking and changing the form of food with like homier things. And being in Atlanta, I like the way he combines and uses molecular gastronomy to actually make the dish better. So I might pair myself with Richard too. How do you go about creating your recipes? I start with food memories. I start with food memories and how I want it to taste. And I have this idea in my head that I want to do a hamburger helper. And, you know, I often talk about how much my mother was not a cook. But I would like to take one of the dishes that she made while I was growing up and make it into a dish that people would want to have. Wait, that didn't really come out right. But what I mean is something that you would be like, oh, I want Carla's hamburger helper. So I haven't made that up yet, but it's in my head, and I can't get it out of my head, and it's been there for like 3 months. So, Mommy, I'm not talking about you. I'm actually wanting to pay homage to you. What are some easy holiday sweet treats that you recommend? Well, when you're making those cranberries, and I know we started with one today, but cranberries, if you cook them down, and you can add port, and you can add some sweetness, and you don't have to use sugar. You could use agave and some other sweetener. That would be yummy in little tart shells, and you may want to tone it down with some chocolate. So let's say you have some tart shells and you put a little bit of chocolate in the bottom and you top it with the cranberries. Another thing is, right now, you guys, I'm loving banana pudding. I'm loving banana pudding and butterscotch pudding and like an almond twirl, and I'm also loving like vanilla salt. So taking some of these like jams and things like that and mixing them into little compotes. You can use a lot of the pomegranates right now, which is in season. You can use cranberries and pomegranates would be really nice. And even though that's tart, because I love that little pucker, that would be really nice in some little moussey thing. Tell us more about your new business venture. I would love to. Okay, so I have to tell you all that when people ask me what I'm doing, like, oh, where's your restaurant? And I say, oh, I don't have a restaurant and I'm not catering anymore. What I'm doing is making cookies. And they're like, cookies? You all, I have to tell you, when someone really loves something and they're really enjoying it, it just can't help but to be good. And I really love making cookies. And they're these little tiny cookies. They're little sweet, petite cookies, like the cereal. You know, you have that cookie cereal. And fun flavors and food memories. And they also are savory. So we have sweet and savory. And the savory ones go really nice with spiced nuts and wine. And so I'm having a really good time with that. How do you stay in shape while being around such delicious food? You stand up, you never get to eat. And actually my staff has to remind me to eat. But what I realized is I actually have really good eating habits, and I eat, the things that I eat without thinking about it, I love vegetables. So I will eat a lot of vegetables. I love salads with bits and bobs, and then I put a little bit of meat on top of it. So, and then I have to tell you, it's my body type. So some of it, I don't even work at it. And it's just, it was what I was given. So that's, yay, plus. But, and I don't stress about it. Honestly, I have to tell you all, I eat a little bit of everything. I'm a grazer. So, you know, if I want cake, I have cake. I just may not have a big slab of it. Would you come back for another session? Oh, would you come back for another season of Top Chef if you were asked? I think 2 times is enough. I don't really want to go. 2 times is enough. You all do not need to see me for a 3rd time. Oh, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me today for the Toms of Maine Wicked Fresh. For their Wednesday chat series. I hope I've inspired you to cook from the heart this holiday season, and that you're able to bring joy to others from all over in your family life, with your friends, from the meals that you make to the natural products that you may buy as gifts. And don't forget to visit Fuel Up to Play 60 at www.fueluptoplay60.com. They do incredible work. Hooty hoo.